Okay, and we are live. Welcome to a new episode of All Things Xbox podcast. Sorry, dry mouth today. Logan, you're here once again this week. How you doing?
Doing great, Jamie. How about you? You sleeping well that Game Pass is profitable?
Yeah. Oh my god, that whole situation. Really, like if people heard like a loud scraping noise at like 11 p.m. last night, that was me rolling my eyes because I'm sick and tired of this topic over and over again. But other than that, I've been okay. The heat here has been kind of unbearable. um, but dealing with it. And for people that don't know, I can't have my fan on during podcasts, so I'm literally melting here. I literally just dunked my head in a cold sink of water. So I'm doing it with the best I can. It's been a busy week. A lot's happened, and we're not going to tread over the stuff we talked about last week because that was a bit morbid, and I think by now people are a bit tired of it. We'll obviously go over some updates that happened throughout the show. But other than that, it's been an interesting week for video games outside of the Game Pass stuff. um, and for people that's just joining right now, OBS completely reset all of my settings. So if there's any audio issues during the show, just type in chat and I'll fix it. Because OBS to me is like looking at Matrix code. It's terrible. But if anything happens, just let me know. Anyway, Logan, it's been a busy week. What have you been playing?
Oh, I've been still processing Expedition 33 after finishing that, and like I said last time, it was probably one of the 10 best games, like top to finish, that I've ever played. Like story, characters, soundtrack, world, gameplay, emotions, everything. Like I finished it and then I just sat there for a while, kind of just processing what I had just experienced and gone through. And then just the other day, I was like, you know what? I'm gonna look up the other ending because, like, this isn't spoilery, but basically, there at the end you get a choice to do or not to do something. So I chose the to do option. So I wanted to see, okay, what was the alt ending that I didn't choose? So I looked it up and watched it, and then I was like, oh, wow, okay. And it left me back sitting and thinking about the game again for a long period of time. And it's like I'm like not ready to jump into like a major game again, like that kind of narrative experience.
Yeah.
I've been more like into like boomer shooters a little bit here and there, or Power Wash Sim or something like that. But I mean, as much Final Fantasy 16 propaganda as Jamie's been
Yeah.
going on lately, I might jump on that. I don't know. Maybe he can get me a discount.
Yeah, yeah. For people that don't know, like on social media, I've basically been posting about Final Fantasy 16 every single day on Twitter, and I'm absolutely loving it. But before I get into what I've been playing, we have the first super chat of the day by Adidas 20, and yes, that's how we say Adidas in the UK. He says salute day for $2. Thank you very much. It's greatly appreciated, and it all goes back into the channel. Anyway, I know people are coming into the show now. Again, if anything messes up with the audio, just let me know in chat. And again, thanks again, Adidas 20 for the $2. So I've been playing a pretty wide range of games. I re-downloaded Expedition 33 because I figured I'm gonna have to get back to that soon. A lot of these games take up a lot of space, so like I'm constantly re-downloading games all the time. It's not the best solution, but it works. Um, but one of the other games I've been playing is actually Call of Duty Ghosts. Yep, an ancient Call of Duty game. So the reason why I've been playing this is because I kind of realized maybe a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, that I really want to complete my Xbox 360 collection. I don't want the whole thing. I don't need every single game. I just want the stuff I missed out on. So when Call of Duty was big back in 2009 to 11, I missed out on a bunch of stuff. It's one of the reasons why I like backwards compatibility. So for the past several years, I've been trying to get those games I missed out on. And for the longest time now, I've tried my best to not buy used games. I try to get them brand new for a few reasons. One, the better condition. Two, Xbox 360s read from the disc, unlike a Blu-ray. So, like, you want your discs to be in pristine condition. And we have a used video game store in the UK called CEX, and the quality is atrocious, absolutely atrocious. So, like, for the longest time, I've tried not buying used games. I try and buy new copies. Like, hell, I have two copies of the Transformers Cybertron games right here, sealed, perfect mint condition. They're probably actually worth something, but they're ready to go if Microsoft decides to give us backwards compatibility. But I decided to get some games. I thought, screw it, I'm going to try and get the best condition used games I can to complete my collection. I only need around 15 more 360 games and I'm done. Anyway, so I'm in the store the other day and I noticed, as I'm buying stuff, there's a copy of Call of Duty Ghosts, which was one of the last Call of Duty games on the 360. And I thought, you know what, I'll buy it. It was £2 and it was mint condition. Disc pristine. Funny enough that the one game I was after the least was in the best condition. Take from that what you will. But yeah, took it home, installed it because I realized last minute, oh yeah, it is backwards compatible. And oh my god, people weren't kidding. That is such a fun campaign. And
It's awesome.
yeah,
It's
like
criminally underrated.
yeah, well,
Yes.
it's one of the Call of Duties I missed out on because I was a Battlefield guy at the time. That's when I switched. So like I missed out on this really cool campaign. And oh my god, it opens up with this huge set piece in space. It's incredible. And there's a set piece where a dam breaks and a city gets flooded. It's incredible. And it's kind of funny because like I love first person shooter campaigns, but we don't get many now. And to go back and play this, it's just been fun. And like for people that have an Xbox that they can play backwards compatible games with, you'll know that seventh generation games, when it comes to first person shooters, they kind of play a bit stiff because a lot of games didn't have this thing called aim acceleration, which is what we really had with the Xbox One and PlayStation 4. I don't know what they did with the aiming in Call of Duty Ghosts, the Xbox 360 version, but the aiming is perfect. Absolutely perfect in this 360 game. So the cool thing is, I'll get to play this, enjoy it, and whenever Microsoft puts the Xbox One version in Game Pass, I'll get to go through it again and double up on achievements. But yeah, I just want to give this campaign, some love because I always seen hate for Call of Duty Ghosts, and maybe it was just for the multiplayer. But for me, I'm strictly sticking to the campaign. It's so much fun. We have the next super chat of the day by Master Sith 40. Thank you very much for the $2. He says, "Hey dudes, I better get my damn Fable game." So say we all. I mean, that was one of the games I've been looking forward to most. I've been a fan of Fable since, the original. Fable 2 is one of my most favorite games of all time. I mean, that game is incredible. It's hilarious. It has a very unique magic system where it basically requires you to press one button, but you can do a bunch of spells. I love that game, and I believe that Playground Games will do a really good job. I know all the stuff that happened last week. People were looking at Fable, but Fable's pretty far through. It was originally meant to come out this year, so like it's just getting polished. It's going to be a solid RPG, and I can't wait for it. Like Logan, I know you can't wait for that game as well, right?
Yeah, I'm personally thrilled for Fable, and like you, I've been playing Fable since the OG Xbox. With the original one, and then the second one, and then the third one, and then the remaster of the first one. I never played the Connect game, which I heard was kind of hit or miss. And then there was that cool, multiplayer one that had a beta but then never launched, unfortunately. But Fable is iconic, and I'm not worried about Fable. I think it's going to be great. I know everybody's a little paranoid, and rightfully so, about the future and fate of some Xbox games and stuff because of last week's, basically Xbox massacre that happened last week. Um, but I think there are a couple things that point to Fable being just fine. One, you look at what happened to Turn 10, they got basically halved, and then they're just supporting um, Forza Horizon going forward. And then, Forza Horizon is obviously done by Playground, and they're all in on that and Fable, and they weren't affected at all. And the games that were canceled were games that had been in development for a long time and were probably in development hell or weren't going to be releasing anytime soon. But the fact that Fable was not included in that means that it should be pretty soon when it comes out. It's not in development hell, and they are really excited about it because that is clearly their crown jewel going forward for their most anticipated biggest next game. So I'm not worried about Fable at all. I'm super excited.
Yeah, I do think Fable would be one of those games that, when we get the developer direct next January, they'll have a huge focus on that. Because,
Hmm.
like, what, GTA launches in May next year? So I can totally see Fable being a February game. I think people have fun with that. But yeah, no need to worry. Like, I know last week scared people, as it should have, because what a bloodbath. But yeah, Fable is 1000% coming. But thank you for the $2, Master Sith 40. But yeah, Call of Duty Ghosts, cool campaign. I will say this: I thought I'd hop on the multiplayer just to see what it's like. And bear in mind, this is the 360 version of a 2013 cross-generation game. There was 19 people online.
There are a dozen of us.
Yeah, so like there's still a few people holding on, trying to enjoy that game. But hey, when that game or the Xbox One version does come to Game Pass, I'm sure people will have a lot of fun with it. Hell, I'm one of those people. I basically only play Call of Duty for the campaigns. Like I play
Same.
I play Warzone with a friend, but outside of like socializing, just talking to a friend, like I love the campaigns. I think it's a travesty that this generation and last generation we get next to no military first person shooters anymore. We used to get them all the time. Um, and outside of Call
I
of Duty,
wonder if it's. Oh, sorry. Go
no,
ahead.
continue. Sorry.
Oh, sorry. I was gonna say. I wonder if it's frankly they got kind of a little scared off from doing them because, you know, this might be a take, but it feels like certain journalistic outlets and certain gaming segments and communities get offended by so many different things that I wonder if they just purposely stepped back from kind of more modernized FPS military shooter campaigns and went to just multiplayer. Like I love the stories and I think they're awesome. I love the campaigns. Like, you know, th- put an FPS in just about any environment, I'll probably enjoy it. But I did find it fascinating within the last 10 years or so with certain kind of shift in, media climate and temperature on things that it did coincide with the disappearance of FPS military campaigns.
Yeah, that could be it. One of the reasons why I think it kind of disappeared, I think that when we all got Xbox Ones and PlayStation 4s, we started to get more open world games. There was like a big
Hmm.
shift from linear games, and I think maybe that's one of the reasons. It could be a wide range of reasons, but I used to miss like if you had a 360 or PS3 or even like a Wii at that time, like you were guaranteed to get what, maybe 4 military first person shooters a year. And granted, the multiplayer and all of them wouldn't really be, the best, but you play for the campaign. And they're pretty much always fun. Like, hell, even Medal of Honor 2010, I will praise that game at every opportunity. The multiplayer was okay, but that campaign was gritty, it was real, and it was just like, it was kind of this like halfway point between Call of Duty and Battlefield, where Call of Duty is fast-paced action, and Battlefield was more, I'm doing air quotes, sim combat. It was basically in the middle. Um, and man, I would just love to have more of these games again. Like, there's literally nothing. Like, I talk about this all the time. I have this like database of games coming to Xbox. That's why I do the monthly list videos on the channel. And there's no military first-person shooters. None. You have COD, and that's going to be cool. I'm going to play it, but nothing. Absolutely nothing. I mean, we have Delta Force coming, but that has a short campaign. But anyway, that's Call of Duty. And I've also been playing, shocker to no one, Final Fantasy 16. I'm going to glaze it again for a minute before we get to the topics. I have not played a shiny, brand new Final Fantasy game since 15. And if I remember correctly, Final Fantasy 15 launched in 2016. I think it was 2016. And you know, that game had its issues at launch because of Chapter 13. For people who don't know, there was a chapter in the game that was notoriously hard. It was, you just wanted to grind your teeth while playing it. Fortunately, when they patched it, they kind of just removed that section and changed things up. But I haven't really played a brand new Final Fantasy game in a very long time. You know, Crisis Core, I glazed that game to hell when it came out, but again, it was a remake of a PSP game. 16 is so good. Like, if you look at all the replies on the Xbox store, it's people basically saying the same thing. We don't get games like this often. You know, it's a semi-linear, action-based, AAA JRPG, and I will call it a JRPG. I don't care what people say. It has, like, you know, high-quality cutscenes, excellent combat, fun combat. You know, the side quests, you can finish in about 60 seconds a piece, but the quality of life improvements, such as like being able to fast travel to where you started the quest to finish it, there's no grinding in the game. Meaning that you like, if you've played Japanese RPGs in the past, you know that you might encounter a boss and you think, right, I'll level myself up for an hour or two. There's none of that in this game. If anything, I'm putting out there, I think the game's easy. That might be controversial, but the game feels hilariously easy compared to other Final Fantasy games. But I'm putting that in the game's favour because I'm sick and tired of playing a JRPG that I'm really loving and I hit a wall of just difficulty. I hate difficulty spikes in video games, especially in JRPGs, because they can be absolutely brutal. I glazed Final Fantasy X since the day it came out. And let me tell you, the the difficulty spikes in that game made me want to snap the disc. You know, same goes for Lost Odyssey with the blue worm, which gave me PTSD for life. But Final Fantasy 16, it's so good. And for people that aren't really used to the franchise, it's a great jumping in point. It's gritty. It's kind of like if you took Final Fantasy and Game of Thrones and mashed them together, and you have this very, I want to say, adult-centric Final Fantasy game where there's blood, there's gore, there's, you know, adult themes, which I can't say on the channel. But if you've seen Game of Thrones, you can kind of catch my drift. But it's just so good. And, you know, there are items in the game that make the game easier if you want. So, like, if people are interested, bear in mind, I was provided a code by Square Enix. I was going to buy the game anyway. It's incredible. And as I said last week, as of right now, it's a 10 out of 10 game. It might drop down to a 9.5 or 9, whatever. But as of now, 48 hours in, might be like 49 now. It's a 10 out of 10 experience. I really can't say anything bad about the game. The way they did summons is very unique to the game. The combat is the shining beacon of hope in this game. The cutscenes, the storytelling, the main character, Clive Rossfield, is like the grittiest Final Fantasy character that they've ever had. Because they can be normally whiny. I know I talked about this last week, but Tidus, oh my god, Tidus is the whiniest dude in the history of JRPGs, and I love that game. But he whines all the time, and that's a 100-hour game, right? But yeah, this is going to be a long game for people that haven't really played it. You're going to be encouraged to do the side missions, and it also has the 2 campaign expansions included if you get the complete edition, which means you're adding basically another 20, 25 hours. But yeah, if people want a JRPG on Xbox, AAA, lots of cutscenes, not too many, lots of good combat scenarios. The set pieces in this game, absolutely nuts. Um, it's brilliant. But that's this week's glazing session of Final Fantasy 16.
Hashtag sponsored.
Yeah, I mean, oh my god. Oh yeah, while I'm talking about it, I was told on Twitter, Jamie, you keep talking about this game. Stop talking about it. I can't help it. Like, like I'm, and the thing is, I'm not obliged to talk about it, right? Like when I agreed to get a review copy from Square Enix, there were no stipulations. They just wanted me to talk about it. Could have been on social media, could have been on YouTube, doesn't matter. But you know what? I'm glazing the hell out of it anyway because it's amazing. People said like, "Oh, I'm talking about it too much on social media." Do you know when Elden Ring came out? I posted about that game every night for 3 months. Every night. Oh, I beat this boss. Just did this section. Found this cool summon. All this types of stuff, right? And nobody complained. I posted about Cyberpunk 2077 and 2022, and I was accused of being paid off by CD Projekt Red. I wish I got one of those yellow chairs because I have that brand. They're super comfy. But yeah, that's it. That's all I've been playing. Let's move on to the topics because even though we'll get to the Game Pass stuff later on, we have, let's see, 16 topics. My God. Right, so let's get this quick stuff out of the way first. Cyberpunk Edgerunners 2 was officially announced, and I could not be happier. And for people that don't know, Cyberpunk launched in not exactly the best state in 2020. We had the full next gen upgrade and the fix in 2022, but nobody played it. Nobody paid attention to it because Elden Ring came out that same week. They picked the worst time to fix that game. But fortunately for them, the anime Edgerunners came out in August that year. And that made people flock back to the game to the point now where Cyberpunk 2077 is a highly acclaimed game. A lot of people would say it's one of the best RPGs of all time, and it gets endless praise. And the developers did go back and fix a lot and add a lot since then. And that anime, oh my god, that is incredible. I think it's 10 episodes, 24 minutes apiece. It's probably my favorite anime, really. Not that I watch a ton of it, but it's incredible. You recognize certain locations from the game, certain bosses, certain people. Like everything about that anime was done so well. So for fans of the game, you're gonna love it. And people that love the anime will play the game and realize they've seen all these areas before. But the story can be pretty traumatizing. It scarred a lot of people for life.
Just a bit, yeah.
Yeah, and but it was executed so perfectly, and even though it was huge, it made a game go from a failure to a success, and basically they came out and said they have no intention of doing an Edgerunners 2. I mean, without spoiling it for anyone, the story ends. There's not really many places they can go. And the company that made or should I say, made that show, the animators, they didn't want to do a second season. Clearly now things have changed because the studio's coming back to do a second season, and the announcement kind of lines up with when the Cyberpunk 2077 2.3 update, that's a mouthful, update was meant to come out, but it was delayed. And apparently this new update is going to contain stuff that's going to be in Edgerunners 2. My God, I can barely breathe. So Edgerunner fans should be excited. Cyberpunk fans, we're getting something to play and at least watch until the next Cyberpunk game, which I believe is called Project Osiris. Man, Cyberpunk fans, we've had a rough time. Things have came a long way. But hey, I'm excited. I think Cyberpunk fans should be excited because, look, if you've played Cyberpunk 2077 and you loved it, watch that anime. It's on Netflix right now. It's incredible. Logan, what's your thought? Because for 2 years in a row now, maybe, close to 3 years, we've been told there's not going to be an Edgerunners 2.
Yeah, I'm excited for this. I mean, Edgerunners is critically acclaimed, incredibly well done. It almost single-handedly revived interest and love for a game and helped them push through it and fix it and get everyone back on board and get in good graces with people again. And it's perfect timing to announce the sequel with the plans for the update, and then rumors of a second expansion at some point. And on a side tangent, that rumored expansion for Witcher 3 all these years later, which would tie in with Witcher 4, it sounds like CD Projekt Red is on a major heater right now. So, super excited. Can't wait for it. And I thought it was interesting in one of the releases Netflix did about it that they said that 50% of their subscribers watch anime in addition to other media on their thing. So I thought that was a really interesting stat because growing up, anime was incredibly niche.
Oh yeah.
Like, very, very niche. Like, hardcore super nerd type stuff. And then now to the point where it is like so mainstream that half their audience is watching at least one or two series regularly on there that is anime. I just I just thought that was super interesting and shows how cultures change and how certain media trends shift and become more mainstream. And hopefully this bodes well for the Gears Netflix or the Gears anime and some of these other animes coming forward as well.
Yeah, I mean, look, I will criticize Netflix's movies. They aren't good.
Hmm.
I think they come out with about 50 films a year, and I'd say like total, I think there's maybe five I could recommend to people.
Hmm.
But their anime, they knock it out of the park. That Castlevania show, uh, borderline masterpiece, incredible. Um, I mean, they clearly get their audience, and as you're saying, like anime used to be very niche, extremely niche in comparison to now. And like in the UK, there wasn't really any way to watch anime unless someone had like DVDs or Blu-rays. But now you turn on Netflix and like there's always anime at the recommended section. Like half of the half of the Netflix feed for me is anime, and I don't even watch a ton of it. Um, and the gamers clearly flocked to that app because they did Dragon's Dogma. I'd say it's one of the underrated animes. Still pretty good. Devil May Cry. I'm pretty sure there's like 50 other games I'm missing out, but they've had so much success. I have heard that there is going to be an Assassin's Creed anime,
Ooh,
which
that makes sense for
yeah,
one.
I would totally be down for that. But yeah, Cyberpunk, it's back, and like the rumors of a new expansion, like my god, like the fans are just eating good right now. I think CD Projekt Red have came such a long way because if you go back to when The Witcher 3 came out, The Witcher 3 launched in a pretty bad state. But it's highly regarded as one of the best games of all time. I think at that point it was the most awarded game of all time, and
Hmm.
they fixed that game's bugs pretty quickly, put in a bunch of quality of life stuff. The expansions are highly rated, and they lost basically all that goodwill they had with Cyberpunk's launch. And they fixed it. Nobody paid attention. The anime basically saved the game, and they basically combined all their efforts to get Phantom Liberty out the door. And people say it's like one of the best expansions ever. So yeah, you just got to love to see it. And the thing is, they've switched to Unreal Engine. Uh, I'm totally interested to see what they do going forward because that Witcher 4 tech demo, even if the game looks 80% like that, we are still in for a treat. It just will be interesting to see what they do with the next Cyberpunk because apparently the game's going to take place in somewhere that's kind of inspired by Detroit. Uh, and for a British guy, Detroit to me is that city from RoboCop. So
Yeah, not quite.
yeah, so hey, if they make the game interesting, I will say this though, I would love it if the new Cyberpunk game has the tone of the CGI trailer that came out 10 years ago. Where everything was like dark, gritty, blue, neon lights, all that stuff. Basically, traditional Cyberpunk that you'd see in like Blade Runner, Ghost in the Shell, Akiva, that type of thing. I'm just a sucker for that cyberpunk subgenre. My God, borderline perfect. But yeah, that's Cyberpunk. Edgerunners 2 coming. They didn't say when. I have a feeling that might be like a year away. Netflix doesn't tend to show their, or at least announce animes too early. They'll probably do their Tudum live stream next year, and I'm guessing that's when it'll be there. Anyway, we'll move on. You know what? We'll talk about this quickly. Um, oh yeah, Metal Gear Solid 3 Remake comes out next month. The developers recently went over that you could play the game in two completely different play styles and not just camera modes. The original announcement was that, hey, you can play with the original camera mode and now with the full-on third-person camera mode. Well, turns out you can play the game how it originally used to play with that gameplay or with the modern style. You know, as someone that's played Metal Gear Solid 3, my God, 20 plus times, I'm ready to play it in a new way. I'm sure the nostalgia will be cool and all that stuff, but yeah, like being able to crouch and move at the same time is going to be a godsend in that game. Um, but yeah, that comes out next month. The game looks great. If you get it on Xbox, the bonus mission isn't actually what was the monkey game?
Ape Escape
Ape,
related.
yeah, the Ape Escape thing. So that Ape Escape's on PlayStation, but if you get the Xbox version, you get a Bomberman mini boss section, which looks pretty cool. But yeah, that's Metal Gear Solid. We're going to get more news soon. The developers did tease Metal Gear Online. With the game being a month out, I suspect we're going to get full gameplay reveal soon of that. Because, look, I love Metal Gear Solid 3. It's one of my favorite games of all time, but Metal Gear Solid games are pretty short. And I think they want to throw in some extra incentives to get the game because, look, the game looks fantastic. It sounds fantastic. Everything they've done about the game looks like how you should do a one-to-one remake. But selling a $70 version of that game, to me, as a huge fan, I think you need to add more, bang for your buck. Because Metal Gear Solid 3, you can literally finish in a handful of hours. And if you're one of those people that skips cutscenes, I don't know why you'd buy a Metal Gear game and skip cutscenes, by the way. But like you're getting a game that's about 3 hours long. I'm not even kidding. But yeah, the game looks good. So the THQ Nordic showcase is going to be on August 1st, so just a few weeks away. Briefly talked about it the other week, but Logan wasn't here. Logan, is there anything in particular you're looking forward to that could be at the THQ Nordic showcase?
That's a good question. I'd love to see Gothic remake
Oh yeah,
possibly if it could show up. That'd be really cool. Um, see some more Painkiller would be great. Um, I remember a few. Man, it's been a while at this point, but 5, 7 years ago, there was that rumor about a Red Faction coming back in some capacity. I would love to see that. Um, but THQ is such an embracer, such a mixed bag of like throwing out a dartboard and seeing what happens. Like I really have no idea what to expect,
yeah,
good or bad.
yeah. I mean, hopefully it's some good stuff. That they did say there's going to be new announcements as well as updates for previously announced stuff. I mean, Gothic. I feel like Gothic remake was announced about 4 or 5 years ago. It's been a while. But what they did put out there so far, it does look good. I know Titan Quest 2 is meant to come out this year, which also looks good. Um, man, if you go back 2 years ago, before they start laying off studios and like developers, like we were talking up Embracer basically every episode. like, like,
Yeah, I feel like a moron now,
yeah.
but like I was so hyped about it.
Yeah, I think at the time I was like, oh, I think they have the potential to be bigger than Ubisoft and better than Ubisoft. And then you fast forward a year and a half. Oof. But hey, hopefully we see some cool stuff. Next up we'll talk about the because this is quite funny. So there's this movement in the UK and Europe called Stop Killing Games. What a ride. So for people that don't know, there's this movement that started in the UK and Europe that basically we want to get the European Union Commission or whatever they want to call it attention to stop the ability for developers to just end games. The amount of times you can fire up a new game, enjoy it, and the developers can just switch off the servers within what, a year, 6 months. Sometimes the game doesn't even get 6 months. And as soon as they end the servers, you have no more access to your game in any capacity. and this has been a problem for years. Like Anthem just got announced that they are turning off the servers, I believe, January 2026. So if you
I
own
honestly
that,
thought they were
sorry,
off
sorry, what'd you
at
say,
this
Logan?
point. Sorry, I was saying like it honestly surprised me that they were still up.
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
I thought those suckers were turned off years ago, so that was a surprise to me.
yeah. No, that was news to me as well. I was pretty sure they turned it off, but look, if the people are interested, Anthem is in Game Pass. Maybe just give it a go while it's available, and it's on sale for like £2. But even then, you're just throwing away your money at that point. Just play it in Game Pass. It might actually be in PlayStation Plus as well, but like that game, you're not going to be able to play it anymore, and that's such a shame. Like you can buy skins in that game, and like this whole stop killing games movement was to basically stop this from happening. Now, some people portrayed it that, hey, we want the ability to have these games updated forever. That's not the case. We just want them to stop turning these servers off. You know, maybe give some servers to fans to look after anything. Like, hell, single player games sometimes get killed, right? And it's happened time and time again. And basically, we needed 1 million votes for this to go through. So after over a year of people voting, pushing this, it finally gets through. We finally get, I think it was like 1.1 million signatures. And you could only sign this if you're from the UK and Europe. But if it were to work, and if it still does work, what would happen would actually filter out to the US and everywhere else in the world. So that's why a lot of people were pushing for it. Anyway, so the European Gaming Commission, which I didn't even know was a thing, came out and said basically a bunch of BS. They came out and said, "Look, it's ridiculous to basically expect these developers to keep servers open and supported forever." They said that, and this is the kicker, right? This is the big one. The big problem was that making these games to be available to be played offline would make it so we couldn't censor certain content. So they let the cat out of the bag. They let us know the truth, really. And then Ubisoft updated their EULA agreement that even if you own a physical disc and they take the servers off a game, take the servers offline for a video game that you like, they want you, I'm not even kidding, to burn the disc. Right? So let's say, I don't know, Rainbow Six Siege, and you bought that on disc for some reason, and they decide to turn the servers off next week, which that won't happen for years. They turn the servers off. They literally want you to go into your garden and burn the disc. Like, that's such a stupid thing. And oh my god, oh yeah, I saw Shiznor mentioned this in chat, right? Suicide Squad, I think they did a really good job with that because you can buy that game still. But the game's made so you can play it offline now, right? It's not an online service game anymore, and like that was a really cool way of doing it. Multiplayer games that have 6v6, 5v5 or whatever, these games should allow you to play with bots. I think people are getting really sick and tired of we get hyped for these online service games or games with live service elements, and we get the servers turned off willy nilly on a whim. Like, look, Concord is the biggest flop of all time, but guess what? Wouldn't it have been cool for those owners of that game to maybe play the game with bots? That game was alive for 2 years. So if you bought, sorry, not 2 years, 2 weeks. So if you bought that disc, it was basically a coaster within a month. Like this shouldn't be allowed. It should be illegal. Like the fact that we don't have class action lawsuits about this stuff on a weekly basis blows my mind. And hopefully the Stop Killing Games movement will continue forward. But the fact that the European Gaming Commission came out and said that, a lot of people kind of got the impression that there's some under the table deals going on, because a lot of the major companies actually support the European Gaming Commission's thoughts on this. They actually against Stop Killing Games. So I think it's shady. I think that people should demand better, keep voicing your opinions, and even if you aren't from the UK or Europe, share these posts anyway. If you see anything in this manner, because Like Logan, I'm sure in the past there's been a game you've enjoyed or looked forward to, and then it doesn't get much support, and then they eventually turn off the servers, and now there's no way to play that game.
Yeah, 100%. There have been several, and like I know Xbox is not in everybody's good graces right now, but one cool thing that they and Epic had done in the past was you remember the game Two Human?
Oh yeah, yeah,
Um, they actually made that backwards compatible, even though basically it had been removed from stores and like destroyed. There was a lawsuit, yada yada yada, like caused all kinds of drama. But Xbox got permission from Epic to allow the copies that still exist to be made backwards compatible and to give it away for free digitally so that it was still preserved for people to experience it. Because, whatever your thoughts on the stuff involved in that game, legally, whatever, like people put time, effort, and money into making this thing, and there were people who enjoyed it and liked the idea of a trilogy, which was what the original plan was. So, like, that is one cool example of a single player game that was able to be resurrected and preserved through a loophole in the system that they found and were agreed to make it work. And like the idea of companies getting all, in their feelings about stuff, about not wanting people to be able to play games after they've reached a certain mandatory time limit or frame where they're like, you know what, we're just done with this game. We don't want people to play this anymore. We're moving on. We're turning off the lights. Everybody go home. It's closing time. The bar's open. They've cut off your tab. It's time to go home. Like, instead of that, make it to where, like you said, where you can play these games with bots offline and stuff like that. Like, frankly, I prefer games with bots or with friends I know
yeah.
rather than a bunch of randoms anyway. But that's besides the point. But the whole idea of like, oh, okay, we're going to get rid of this. And not only are we going to get rid of this, we want you to destroy the copies you have. I'm like, you know what kind of energy that brings? That brings some like historical precedent energy. I'll just put it that way. That's kind of really weird and creepy, and I don't like that. And I just I don't know. I think it's funny that the big corporations and entities are so against people being able to play something after a given time frame because they're done with it and want to move on. It's like if you want to wash your hands of it, fine. Just put it on a neutral server kind of thing or
Yeah.
something and just make it to where it's like or like Redfall. Like look, I'll be honest. I was very much on the not thrilled with Redfall, fan of Redfall, yada yada yada. But I will applaud them that even though the studio, rest in peace to Arcane Austin, is gone, and that game is dead online, they've made it to where you can play it offline and still continue all the content that they had supplied to that point. And another example, I know they're not in everybody's good graces right now, but that at least was a good example of how to preserve a game properly. And I just think it's funny that some of these companies are so antagonistic to the idea. It's really weird energy and bad vibes.
Yeah. Another example I'll use is so my mother used to play this like farming game, right? She put like 8 years into it, and then randomly the developer came out and said, "Look, we ended support for the game. Not because not many people were playing it. It's because they didn't want to change the software they had to use for the website. So like all the fans of this game were asking like, well, can you not just like charge us so we can have an offline version?" And the developers were like, "No." So like all these people that, including my mother, had played this like farming game for like 7 years, lost all their progress, couldn't play anymore. Right, and that was such a crappy way of going about it. And the thing is, we've seen other games do a similar thing, but end up in a positive way. So I'll use Nintendo as an example. Their Animal Crossing game on iOS was unbelievably popular, and it was free to play. And what did Nintendo did, the most surprising thing is that when they ended the support, I think it was about a year ago, they didn't just turn the servers off for people. They literally changed it so the store stuff. So basically, you could pay $10 and you would have access to the game offline on your phone forever. Right? So they made it from a live service game to a paid one-off thing, because they were ending support. And I thought that was such a cool way to do it because, yeah, they are charging money for it, but I think most fans would be on board for that kind of, business model for a game that's shutting down. Like, people still have access to the content. They can still play with other players, and it's peer-to-peer, so basically the host is the server. And, you have access to your game as of now for life. Like, why can't more developers do that? I think it's just such a crappy thing. And like, look, at one point, the Mass Effect 3 servers are going to be turned off for that multiplayer. I'm going to be heartbroken, right? I know it's a bit of a meme that I talk about Mass Effect on a weekly basis. Let's be honest, it's more of a daily thing. Like, as soon as that multiplayer gets turned off, I'm going to be heartbroken. I play that on a regular basis, and it came out in 2012, right? There's no bots in that game. As soon as it's done, it's done. And yeah, just wanted to bring it up because like there's so many games people play and they love and they're not gonna have access to anymore. And look at Destiny, right? You can still play that first Destiny game, and then whenever they turn off the servers, that game you bought and all those expansions gone forever. And I just think that's a travesty. I think these live service games they need to be built in mind with, hey, can people still play this game that they just bought? If the servers get turned offline, do peer-to-peer stuff, anything. We just can't keep having this over and over again. And it's not even just a live service thing. Like, why do games get delisted so often? Sometimes it has nothing to do with licensing for a soundtrack or anything like that. People need to put the foot down because we are asked on a daily basis to spend money in video games. And we are told that these games should cost $80 now. And what? You're going to make us pay $80 for this video game and then just turn the servers off a year from now because you feel like it? Like, we really have to vote with our wallets. And if we do, maybe then they'll get the message. Because, look, Logan, can you remember back in, like, the early 2000s, maybe up until, like, the early 2010s, if you bought a multiplayer game or a game with multiplayer, you could play with bots if you wanted, every time.
Yeah, absolutely. Like one of my favorite multiplayer games of all time remains Time Splitters 2 and 3.
Yeah.
Like those multiplayer modes were badass. I just absolutely loved them. It was so fun like playing this match with like up to like 20 or 30 other bot characters and like playing like either like infected mode or like teams or deathmatch or stocks or whatever, and then all the challenge modes and all this stuff. Like to this day, it is still like peak. Like those and a whole bunch of older FPS games and even third person games. Like you could play multiplayer with bots, like a bunch of racers. Like I remember uh Diddy Kong and Mario Party and Mario Kart. All these games would have bots and stuff where you could play them solo or with people you knew. So it just, I think, a side tangent, but I think the death of couch co-op, largely, it's not all gone, but there's nowhere near as much split screen as there used to be, and I think it's a travesty. Like I think that I know most people play with their friends online and stuff, but there are still of us who, live in a household with other people or have friends over and do things who, guess what, would like to be able to play with their friends or family in person. I know that's a crazy concept to some of these companies, but the same companies who want you to not be able to play a game that you own just because they're just done with it don't want you or don't want to apparently support the idea of you playing with people in your direct area. It makes no sense, and it frankly it's just dumb. Honestly, like I know it was an issue for like Baldur's Gate tech wise and stuff, but surely, surely they can figure it out for some stuff. And honestly, that was one of the biggest red flags with Halo Infinite to me was the day they announced the cancellation of split screen. That was a massive red flag, and because they went against what Halo was about, and I'm still not happy about that. I know I'm one of like a dozen of us, but sorry for the tangent. It sparked something in my memory that I hadn't thought about in a while.
Yeah, that's fine. Just wondering, can you play Halo Infinite with bots?
Um, some modes, yes. Like there's a like a training trial run kind of thing you can do, where you can practice against bots to get better and stuff. But like it's not that many modes or that many options like a Time Splitters 2 would have or something like that.
All right. Yeah, it needs to be standardized again. But yeah, just thought I'd bring it up because I, I just look at all the games on my shelf and just like seeing like one game by one, like get either delisted or they couldn't like online support. Like it's annoying. And like one of the heartbreaking games to me is the first Titanfall game. Like they turned
Hmm.
servers off to that game years ago. There's no way of playing it. And I think that is an absolute travesty because all you need right now is the right streamer or the right meme or moment to pop off, and a multiplayer can come back, right? Like the mobile game or PC game, it's basically everything now. But Among Us basically had a second life just because like a few streamers one day decided to play it, right? And now it's massively popular. And I was hoping at some point maybe Titanfall would have that because that multiplayer in Titanfall 1 was top 10 multiplayer for me of all time. And yep, there's no way to play it now. I think the servers are even turned off on PC, but my god. And also when I was when I was in CEX looking at these video games, the used video games, I saw a bunch of live service games that were being sold that I know for a fact the servers are turned off. Can you remember a game called Brink?
Oh yes, that was by Bethesda,
Yeah,
wasn't it?
yeah. They had a stack of Brink copies, and I think they were going for about £8 a piece. And I thought to myself, like, I'm pretty sure you can't play that game anymore. But that happens so often. I don't know if people remember this, but there was an MMO back on the Xbox 360 and early Xbox One days called Defiance. It was basically linked to a TV show. Um, and it wasn't the best. But the idea was that if something happened in the MMO, they could basically change the course of the TV show and vice versa. There's no way to play that game anymore. And it was such a cool concept for the early 2010s. It was just a shame. Anyway, we'll move on. And by the way, we might have another game cancellation. And if this is true, I think a lot of people are going to lose the marbles. And no, it's not Microsoft. So, for the past, I want to say 2.5 year, maybe 3 year, ever since the Nvidia GeForce leak, which basically everything on that list was true. It turns out that Square Enix might have been working on a Final Fantasy IX remake, and now it might be cancelled.
Oh no.
Yeah. Now, I'm a bit of a two minds about this because given how Square Enix has spent most of this year, they are hyping up something, right? Even the official Pizza Hut Facebook page just posted a picture of the Final Fantasy 9 art and said, just announce it already, right? I don't have to delete it yet, but like people are wanting this game to be announced. And for people that don't know, it's the 25th anniversary of Final Fantasy 9. And the rumor was that this year we were going to get a remake that is in the style of the Crisis Core game we got 3 years ago. Now, that is a perfect blend of remake and remaster, and I think people would love that. Um, and like Final Fantasy 9 is a game I never played. I used to hate that kind of art style, but now as an adult, I'm actually okay with it. So I do want to play it and give it a chance. And I was really looking forward to it. But Square Enix, they posted trailer after trailer talking about, hey, it's Final Fantasy IX's 25th anniversary, and they have more to announce and show, and nothing's happened yet. And a bunch of people came out yesterday and said it might be cancelled. I think that is a bloody travesty. Final Fantasy, especially on Xbox at the minute, given the announcements, like, if everything goes to plan, we are getting 3 Final Fantasy games on Xbox this year. Maybe a 4th if 9 happens. 14 is having this huge uptick because of the expansions and stuff. Like, Square Enix, they're having a good time with Final Fantasy. And if this happens, I think a lot of people are going to be disappointed. Logan, what's your thoughts? Because there's nothing official yet, but it does feel like Square Enix is talking about this anniversary like every day now.
Well, I hope it's not true about it being canceled because that would really really suck. Because I never played 9. I played a bunch of the older Final Fantasies, but 9 was one I had missed, like you. So I was really looking forward to playing it and experiencing it as the best it could be. That's part of the reason why I had been holding off on buying the ninth one every time it's on sale, because I knew this remake was around the corner. But if that ends up not happening, well, one, I guess I'll pick up the original one next time it's on sale. And two, it's a real bummer. I hope the game happens.
Yeah. I mean, look, I think, Square Enix typically lists things or announces things in August. So hopefully we'll see something there. And as much as I don't like say people should tune into Jeff Keighley's Gamescom show, hopefully that's there. Because, like, Final Fantasy IX Remake, that's something people have been wanting for a very long time. Like, Tactics has been memed into coming back for, I want to say, at least 5 years. People have been wanting that to come back, and it comes out this September. So many people are happy.
I am very happy.
Yeah, and I think I may have played that on the Game Boy Advance. I'm 99% sure it had a Game Boy Advance version. But
It did. I had it.
okay, so that's the one I played. But like a lot of people are happy about that, and like Final Fantasy IX. My God, I hope it's true. And if it is true, you're gonna see me hype train the living hell out of it on Twitter anyway. But hey, just thought I'd bring it up because it is a highly anticipated game, even though we don't know if it exists or not. Um, before we get into the really big topics, we're about an hour into the show. If you're enjoying it, please like, share, and subscribe. The like and stuff does really help with the algorithm, especially for a live show. I hate doing these little ads, but it really does help the channel grow and also the podcast grow. If you want to support the channel with super chats, all of it's greatly appreciated. I'll answer and read out anything within reason. Anyway, so Helldivers 2. Now, after the week last week, Microsoft didn't really have the best time with news, and a lot of it, a lot of it broke out last week just before the podcast started, and literally the next day, Helldivers 2 was just randomly announced on Xbox, and when it was first announced, I'm not even kidding, I didn't actually believe it. Because when I opened up the store, I saw it there in the coming soon section. And I thought this has to be some sort of like AI generated art for some indie game that's, they're doing some sneaky stuff. No, it's real. It's coming out in August, and it's going to be, if I remember correctly, $34.99. That's in pounds, and $39.99 in dollars. There's also a premium edition with skins and stuff. But this is a game changer because some people said this was never going to happen. Some people said, hey, a PlayStation game can never come to Xbox. And, by the way, the Helldivers, actually we'll talk about the Helldivers 2 community in a minute, but it's such a shocking piece of news because it's arguably one of the biggest news stories of the year. Helldivers 2 was massive last year, absolutely massive. And, the PC crowd did their thing. They loved it. Although the PSN stuff did, a lot of people weren't happy with that. But all in all, for the game itself, people seem really happy. It's actually surprising news. Logan, what's your take? Because it was announced out of the blue. and a lot of people seem fairly happy.
Oh, I'm thrilled. Like, I had been wanting to pick this up at some point, and so now I'm just like overjoyed it's coming to Xbox. So I'll definitely be picking it up. I can't wait to fight for democracy. I'm doing my part. I'll be pre-ordering it, and it is so ripe for so many crossovers. Like, you can do Halo content, obviously, with ODSTs, or even Master Chief if you wanted to. You could do Gears type crossover, a Doomslayer type crossover, like all the, name your classic FPS badass Marine thing, and you can put it in there. And it's awesome. I can't wait for it. I'm glad the community has been so supportive and thrilled by this. It shows that, the gaming walls really are being torn down, finally, that we're actually heading towards that idealistic console world that we've talked about, where, it's going to eventually be there are the console makers and they have first party games, but it's their, it'll be about their interfaces, their accessories, their like options, or other features that make you choose one system or another rather than the games. It'll be like, you pick one, like this is a Ford, this is a Mercedes, this is a, BMW, this is a Jaguar, like whatever. It's like at the end of the day, yes, they're all cars or vehicles, but you choose one because of either the price range or what you think it says about you, or you like the feel of one, or you like the style of one, like whatever the case may be for you choosing a certain vehicle. It'll be like that, but for consoles. So I just think this is big news, and it's the perfect first title to bring over. And just like Xbox, it's only four so far. It's like, yeah, it's only one so far. This is gonna sell like an unseemly amount of copies. Like, I guarantee you, within the first week, it's going to be just wild. The numbers this is gonna have on Xbox, and just I'm excited for it. Can't wait for it. Um, and yeah, good news. Hopefully that means that they quit being goofy about the like the anybody's golf and some of these other games that were everywhere but Xbox that they've already made multi-plat. Hopefully those come next, and then some of the other stuff that is more idealized in the PlayStation community. So the walls are coming down, baby. Whether you like it or not, this is the new world we live in.
Yeah. The reactions have been kind of all over the place because the Helldivers 2 community, like, they've basically said since day one they want this to happen. They've been basically pushing for it. Like, there's been memes for like a year of like, hey, when the Xbox fan base comes into the battle, like, people have been wanting this to happen for a long time. And obviously you're gonna have the detractors, the people that are upset by it, but I mean, like Logan just said, like, I think pulling down the walls of exclusivity and just having, like, the interface, the controller. Like, look, I I think the Xbox controller is the best controller of all time. I think it's
Mm-hmm.
comfortable, but there's people that think that about PlayStation as well, and like, sticking to one piece of hardware for a controller does seem a bit weird if you think about it. But at the same time, it's like, for Xbox, I prefer the interface. I like the store. I like the ecosystem. Achievements to me, right? I bloody love achievements. Ever since they introduced achievements in 2005, where you have Jay Allard sitting on stage and he's, blazer and hoodie, talking about how, you're going to have Game Pass, not Game Pass, gamer cards, and, styles. So you had Underground and Pro Gamer and that type of thing. Like, that's one of the reasons why I like Xbox games, the achievements and stuff. It's probably going to get to that, and is it really a bad thing? Like, and Helldivers 2, like Logan said, it's the perfect game to kick that off with. It's going to be huge on Xbox. It's a co-op shooter where you fight aliens and robots. What's not to like? ODST fans, probably looking at this game drooling. you know, because look, people loved ODST Firefight back in the day. My God, that was fun. And this is,
Hmm.
it's kind of that, just on a bigger scale. So I think people will like that. Uh, I have seen people say it will only be live service games, but uh, I'm not the biggest expert in Lego titles, but I'm pretty sure Horizon Lego Adventures is not a live service game, and that's on Switch, day one. Um, but hey, the people that are hey, more players get to play this game. They should be pushing this for PlayStation games. Wouldn't it be cool if Spider-Man comes to Xbox next? Because think about that, there aren't really many open world superhero games. Hell, that Black Panther game unfortunately got cancelled. I was looking forward to that. But like, if Spider-Man came to Xbox, why not? Because I've said this today earlier on Boom Show, and I've been saying this on this channel for multiples of years now. I was saying that Sea of Thieves was going to go to PlayStation before any of the rumors. Not based on any, me being Mystic Meg or knowing the future or anything. Because I think most games, unless you're a Grand Theft Auto, you have a max ceiling of sales potential. And was there anyone really buying a new Xbox in 2023 to play Sea of Thieves? I don't think so. If you wanted to play the game at that point, you would have had an Xbox or been playing it on PC. So that's why I think it's okay for these games to branch out. So you have Spider-Man that's sitting on a server somewhere, and yeah, it is still selling copies, but who's really buying a new PlayStation in 2025 to play that game? A 2017 superhero title. I can't imagine many people. So I think it's perfectly fine for these games to go on other platforms. Like put Helldivers on the Switch too. Why not? It's cool that this is happening. It's Sony opening the door a little bit. You did see the people online that were like, it turns out there's team killing in the game, which I didn't know about. And these people want to team kill Xbox players. If that happens, I guarantee you that the developers will put the kibosh on that really quickly. They will end it, right? They will put something in place to the point where you can't do that anymore, because getting a game like that, a multiplayer-centric game or co-op, and then having people ruin it for you, that's not going to go down well, and it will not work in anyone's favor. You'll probably get
Yeah, nobody likes griefers.
yeah,
Don't be a griefer.
yeah, griefers are the worst thing. Hell, griefers get kicked out of Among Us. They get kicked out of Fall Guys. Those are less hardcore games. So if people do that stuff in Helldivers, they're gonna get kicked. They're gonna get banned. So people can try and push it, but it won't end well. And look, I think the game looks cool. I mean, you fight aliens and robots. What's not to like? There were stipulations for MLB The Show because, the Major League wanted for the license to be owned by Sony or, licensed by Sony. They had to put it on everything. But for this, it's a Sony first-party IP. They are putting it on Xbox, and it's a win for everyone. It's kind of weird. In the same day, you have Gears going to PlayStation, and Helldivers, which is arguably Sony's most successful live service game of all time, is coming to Xbox. Crazy. What a time to be alive. Now, will we see something like Super Smash Brothers on an Xbox? I'm guessing not. Maybe in 30 years. Because
Nintendo has their own rules.
Yeah, Nintendo has their own rules. They're in their own little bubble. But everyone else, I think it's cool. I think it's really cool. Hell, and I might get hate for this, I'd be 100% down if Sony wants to put Days Gone on Xbox. Brand new IP, sold over 10 million copies, did extremely well, obviously, and the only reason it didn't get a sequel is because of a Metacritic score. That still blows my mind, by the way.
It wasn't even bad. It was just okay, the score.
Yeah, and I'm a firm believer of you can have really good games with crap Metacritic scores. It's like the whole Rotten Tomatoes thing, how you'll have a new movie come out, it's got 30 on Rotten Tomatoes by critics, but when it comes to actual people watching the movie, it's got a 92 or something. These companies need to stop obsessing with scores. you know. But hey, this could be the beginning of things to come. If it does well, which I think it will, we could see more titles. Logan, is there any other titles that you think that they could bring over realistically?
Yeah, this might sound like a nuts take, but I hear me out. Like, it wouldn't surprise me. You see, we're in the era of remasters and remakes. For all the companies are bringing back some stuff or kicking the tires on things that haven't been used in a while to see if there's a market and interest in stuff. What? And you see how they Xbox has just remastered Gears again, and in along with their push to make it multi-platform so that they have the newest best possible version on the other platforms. Wouldn't this be a good time to kick the tires and dig back up a Resistance or a Killzone or an Infamous or something like that? A multiplayer focused shooters or even SOCOM for that matter. You talked about modern shooters, campaigns and stuff. SOCOM was awesome back in the day. I used to play that so much on the PS2. Like, you bring those back or an Infamous back, you talk about the open world superhero
Yeah.
type game like a Spider-Man or an Infamous or a like a prototype crackdown type experience. Like, those to me, especially since they are ones that have multiple entries in the franchises already, you could easily do like a collection of each trilogy or franchise or whatever, put on a fresh coat of upscaled paint and sell those as part of a multi platform push. And I bet you a ton of people would pick those up on Xbox. Not saying it will happen, but I don't know. I feel like there might be some potential there.
Yeah. You know, before we continue with that topic, so like every time we do a podcast, I have to write down timestamps for the
Mm-hmm.
topics, and then as soon as the show's done, I go into the settings and I copy and paste everything into the description so they appear as timestamps. I feel like such an arsehat for noticing this. There's literally an option for me to just click one button and for that to happen automatically. It's like at the top of the stream page for like on my end, people can't see this at home, but like there's literally a little marker that looks like a bookmark, and it says add stream marker. So if all this time I've been doing it manually, it's just been there at the top. Oh god. Oh, I'm an arse.
It's great.
But yeah, I think it would be cool to see. Like you mentioned the Infamous stuff. I remember playing Infamous 2 back in the day. That's a fun game. Like I think Sony, they have a lot of games just stranded on PS3. Why not do collections? They clearly like remastering stuff, so why not put a Killzone collection or a God of War collection? You know, include the original games, the PSP stuff, all that stuff on one disc. And people will make fun and say it's port begging and stuff, but I think over the past year and a half, I think we've all kind of come to like just dealing with this. Right, it is weird seeing these games on other platforms, but I think that's where the future's going when it comes to all this stuff. But it's exciting time. Helldivers 2 coming to Xbox. It's a sign of things to come, I believe. I do think we will see more. Do I think you're going to see The Last of Us 1 and 2 on Xbox next week? No. Do I think Spider-Man? I think Spider-Man's actually the most likely game. It's a licensed title. It would generate a crap ton of money. Crap ton. Because, again, if you're on Xbox and you want to play an open-world superhero game, you have the Arkham games, and that's it. I can't really think of any other open-world superhero games. I don't think there are any. We can throw Prototype 1 and 2 in there, and those are terrible ports. But yeah, Helldivers 2 coming next month. It's going to be huge. You know what? Let's get into the meat of the show because this is going to be a long one. So, Game Pass. Oh, we'll quickly talk about this quick. Banjo Kazooie. Logan, I know you really love this franchise. You want it to come back. there's some news.
Yes. Apparently from VGC, and I know they're a little hit or miss sometimes, but they certainly have a more reliable track record than some other major outlets that have been out there recently. Um, they came out and were talking about how that there are two studios that have been really fiending over wanting to do a Banjo game, and they're two well respected, loved studios. And frankly, I would greenlight for both. I would be like, you know what, you do one, you do one. Like, I'd love to see what both of them would like to do. And the studios are Toys for Bob, which seemed like a no brainer that everybody has been like, when Xbox first had them before letting them go, people were like, hey, let them do the next Banjo. They're literally perfect for it. And then once they were allowed, given their independence, people are like, okay, after you finish your Spyro or Crash game, whatever it may be, which it's likely Spyro, seems all signs point to Spyro 4, then you could do a Banjo game. And they have interest. Their management wants to do a Banjo game as well. So they seem like a no brainer. Totally blessing idea for that. And then the other one was one that kind of took me by surprise, but I mean, I would definitely be down for them to do it. They're very good. Is Moon Studios, who did Ori and Ori, both the Ori games. They they're very talented. They know how to do emotional pulls and platforming and Metroidvanias and like beautiful art styles and excellent music and mechanics. Like they would not have been at the top of my list of ideas. Like, but it's like one of those ideas where it's like I didn't know I needed this thing until I needed it or I heard about it, and I just love the idea, and so it just goes to show that all these decades later, there is still a strong, passionate interest in that IP and franchise. And if Xbox could just please stop butchering rare old IPs and let somebody do something with them and keep it alive, that would be great.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I'd have to go with Toys for Bob. If you play Crash Bandicoot 4, like that, I don't want to even say a graphic fidelity, but how everything pops in that world, like the colors,
It's
everything.
very pretty.
Yeah, very pretty game. Like I would love to see Banjo made by them. The other studio I would actually like them to do, and I don't think this will happen, is actually Double Fine. I think they could make.
Yeah, they've been adamantly against the idea,
Yeah, like
unfortunately.
I think that's maybe a bit too like nice and friendly for them. I think Conquer would be more for them. Um,
Yeah, they need a mind cluck game.
yeah. But hey, hopefully it happens. I think if enough fans want it and people keep voicing it, and look, Toys for Bob's basically independent now. So if they push hard enough, and I can't see it being like it's not going to be $100 million game, I think they can get it done. And can you imagine how much? Or sorry, how many copies a Banjo Kazooie like new game would like potentially sell on a Switch too?
Oh, it would be unseemly numbers. Like you saw the streams when they announced him for Smash Brothers.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
people have been wanting a game for a very long time.
Yeah. So like granted, it'd be Game Pass day one, it'd do well on Game Pass and all that stuff, but like Nintendo, like that Super Smash Bros. Announcement went absolutely insane. And there's still a built in fan base that clearly want it. But yeah, hopefully it happens. You know what, we have a couple of big topics left. Let's get into it. So Game Pass. Most people listening, I would say all, would pretty much agree the same thing. Game Pass, it's a good deal. You get a lot of value. And, after all the stuff that happened last week with the layoffs, last night, it basically just came out of nowhere where you had several, I want to say, semi or high profile journalists, however you want to call it, just start coming out of the woodwork and just start concerning over Game Pass and what it's doing to the industry. And I'm sitting there wondering, what are all these people talking about? Because Sony doesn't have Game Pass. They had layoffs. Embracer doesn't have Game Pass. They had layoffs. They've had more layoffs than anyone. So like, why is everyone pushing for this? As it's Game Pass's fault. Some people said it's Game Pass changing people's buying habits. That is complete nonsense because the most popular games are the ones that aren't on Game Pass, right? Most played, top paid, all that stuff. Like hell, Grand Theft Auto, I know it's in Game Pass now, but Grand Theft Auto is an ancient game at this point, GTA 5, and it's basically always number one every single month, right? We have new titles topping the charts all the time. I think there's this weird thing at the minute where, like, we have bad news with layoffs, and people want to lay blame. And people are just pointing at Game Pass rather than pointing at the real enemy, the real problem with the game industry. The one thing people don't want to actually blame themselves, which I'll get into in a minute, but Game Pass is getting all this blame. Yet, I guarantee you, all those people doing those articles, making those videos saying Game Pass is bad, the people that do podcasts every week saying Game Pass is bad, right? I guarantee you all of them are subscribed to Netflix or Disney Plus, because those services are allowed. But Game Pass, all these all these journalists have had problems with Game Pass since it was first announced. Game Pass has been around for 8 years. 8 years. And in that time, there's been a constant barrage of attacks against Game Pass. But no other service gets attacked. PS Plus? Nope. The worst one is actually Apple Arcade because you can't buy games that are in the service. But does that get attacked in any capacity? No. People want to play the blame game and blame everything on Game Pass. And I've seen this trending, not even trending, but people trying to get it to trend that kill Game Pass, end Game Pass. And I'll say this right now, the people that are doing this, they're doing it for bait. It's rage bait at this point, because can you imagine, Logan, if Microsoft came out tomorrow, put out a public statement and said, hey, starting tomorrow, Game Pass is ending, and we're going to go back to the business, plan we used to do, right? Sell all games piecemeal. There's no library of games. We're going to go back to Xbox Live Gold, where that's how you pay for your multiplayer. No library of games, right? Can you imagine the reaction if that happened?
It would be, I'd say 2013 levels of hysterics, probably. Or like very, very close. It would definitely be Matric energy for sure.
Yeah, and the people that are constantly against Game Pass, all these people would come out of the woodwork and start making content saying, oh no, it's the death of Game Pass. Excuse me. And they'd make more clickbait with cringe face profiles, in the thumbnails, doing all this clickbait nonsense. Why? Because they're boring. That's the only way they can get clicks. And look, Xbox had a great summer showcase. They showed Play Anywhere and Game Pass in many big titles, first and third party. Yet, people are reaching for, like, Sony has had issues with laying off people. Embracer, we couldn't talk about this enough. Embracer has laid more off than anyone, more than Xbox. But people are blaming Game Pass. Like, Logan, before we get into the real issue with, like, the all the studios and the offs and stuff, which none of these hack journalists, I'll call them hack journalists, want to talk about. Logan, what's your take on everyone randomly attacking Game Pass all of a sudden?
Yeah, it's oh boy. How to say this nice? It always seems to come from one or two people that, if you've been paying attention for a few years now, there are a few people out there who generally have kind of a view one way or another about how places operate, or just don't understand business ideas for this company or whatnot, and they've worked for different outlets over the years, and no matter where they've been, their pieces have been largely negative or antagonistic, or kind of backhanded compliments, or have put stuff out there and then within 48 hours or a week
have to retract a statement and issue a quote clarification or an update on something. It has happened repeatedly by some of these people. And at some point, like, if it looks like a duck, it walks like a duck, and it quacks like a duck, it's a duck, you know? So it just, I don't know why people keep giving attention and focus and brain cell energy to some of these places that clearly don't. I don't know if don't know what they're talking about is the right word, but just it's it's not where you should be going. It's just weird, and it's funny that people keep going back to them. I guess like it goes to the whole negativity brings clicks, or like, oh, we this company is failing, let's talk about it, rather than this company is succeeding, let's talk about it. It's like people would much rather read about the company that's house on fire, burning to the ground, explosions, ship sinking type diuretic, like type vocabulary just put out there, rather than like, wow, this company's doing great and people loving the games, everything's wonderful. We're gonna talk about that. It's like people flock to the car crash over the other idea. And so they try to turn something into a car crash when it's a fender bender. It's not a car crash. And I don't know. It's just funny, and that it seems to be repeatedly the same individuals getting egg on their face over and over again. You would think that people would, think twice before they tweet. Apparently, you just people are just firing tweets off and then going, "Oh, maybe I should have asked for clarification or asked for comment on this before posting this, because now I'm getting torn a new one online by everyone, and people are seeing what it is, and it's not great."
Yeah,
That would be my thoughts on that.
yeah. I mean, look, on this channel, I try to keep things professional. I don't mention names. But if this person isn't going to be professional either, why should I hold that same standard? Chris String. Right, Chris String is the main problem, right, over the past 48 hours. I hate the fact that game news used to be, hey, this cool new game has this new feature. Borderlands 3 has a new way of sharing, loot, all this type of stuff, like genuine game news. Now, and this has been my biggest complaint for years, that game news has basically diluted to just rumors, leaks, and false negativity. I always use the term false negativity because that's all it is now, right? Any news story that happens, you have the grifters doing their thing, making clickbait. You have people taking Game Pass and trying to make a bad thing of it for 8 years and never succeeding, right? You have Chris String coming out the woodwork and basically saying that he has heard from his sources that, Microsoft's first-party games the costs aren't covered, by the money Game Pass makes. Now, okay, let's say that's true. Let's say he did hear that it was from someone from Microsoft. Well, today he came out and said he was wrong. And by the way, he didn't come out and say, I was wrong, I apologize. No. He did the typical thing these, I want to call pretentious gaming journalists. I'm doing air quotes with journalists here. And you can tell I'm annoyed because I have to see this on a monthly basis. If you come out and rather than saying, hey, I'm sorry, I retract my statement, I was wrong, and deleting the original post, right? If you don't do that, but instead you write 10 paragraphs in a single tweet, and where at the end you say you were wrong, but you're happy to see that, Xbox is doing well, you're salty, basically. You're salty that you were wrong, and you basically have to sort of retract what you say, right? It's behavior we see on a consistent basis. This individual has been wrong many times in the past the same way. The problem with a lot of these people is that rather than doing investigative journalism before they make a statement, they just post anything they want, willy-nilly, report it as facts, and then they have to retract it when they are inevitably wrong. It's happened time and time again, especially with this individual who I've ratioed about 6 times. Needs to stop doing this. Like, imagine if we lived in a world where people saw, like, hey, I have this theory about Game Pass. Maybe I'll dig something up, see if I can actually speak to someone from Microsoft and report on a fact, right? They don't do that anymore. They just report on leaks and rumors and conjecture, made up crap, right? It's no longer games journalism, it's tabloid clickbait. That's what gaming journalism. And there are people out there that I think do make good content. Don't get me wrong. I'm not talking about all of them, but it's people like this Chris guy, and people just leave him alone. Don't attack him. Just ignore him, mute him, block him. These people get away with it. And as I was saying today earlier to Boom, and I've said to Logan in the past, these people, they don't make retractions, right? This isn't like old school style like journalism where, hey, something was said, even like defamatory about a person or company, they got something wrong, and then they write a retraction. IGN does this all the time, by the way, where they'll get something wrong, and rather than delete the post and make a retraction, they'll actually just update their article, which you have to click on, and then you're giving them the extra click to see the updated article. They are keeping the original post up, making money off that original post, and it's happening all the time. Look at all the times IGN's made a post saying, hey, this game is coming to PlayStation, Nintendo, and PC. And I've had to copy their post and say, by the way, it's coming to Xbox as well. They never retract those posts because they make money off them, right? So unless they get community noted, they make money off that post. That's why these companies, they don't do retractions anymore. Same with this Chris Dring dude and everyone else. It's all about the clicks. It's all about the money. Even if they get something wrong, they still want the clicks, right? It's what I hate about the modern state of gaming journalism. Again, this isn't about everyone. There's just a lot of people that do this. It's tiresome. Game Pass, it's a good service. It's like Netflix, but you actually get things like discounts for games. You get perks, right? Nobody's against Disney Plus on a daily basis. Nobody's making... look, I do not subscribe to Amazon Prime. I don't talk about Amazon Prime. I don't need to talk about Amazon Prime. I just don't subscribe. But with Game Pass, it's the one subscription service people talk about all the time. And it's crazy that this is happening over and over again. And all these people, these investigative journalists, they completely want to ignore the elephant in the room. The real problem with gaming. Cost and development time, right? By the way, all those layoffs that happened at Microsoft, those weren't just Xbox. Those were Microsoft divisions, one of which was Xbox. But anyway, the problem with the game industry at the minute, and I've been saying that, like, Logan, how many years have I been talking about game cost and production time?
I would say probably 3 to 5 years at this point.
Yeah, it's been a while. And, we're told that these games, they cost more to make, so we have to be charged more. But yet we get games broken more often on a consistent basis. We get microtransactions in more games than ever before. We have Mikey Barber coming out the woodwork telling us that we should tip AAA developers for games we enjoy. And we constantly being asked for money, right? Development time has went up to the point where games can take 6, 7, 8 years. So when these games come out, they have to be instant successes, right? Games costing hundreds of millions of dollars to make, but people want to blame Game Pass. Do you know another thing that is causing these issues? It's the black hole games, right? Your Fortnites, your Apex Legends, your Warzones, your PUBG. Basically take any free-to-play game where people can play for years, months on end, without paying a single penny. You have millions of gamers. They are getting into the gaming at the minute, I say, and they are playing free-to-play games. Maybe it's on their parents' PlayStation or Xbox. Maybe it's on their tablet or something. Their avenue to gaming is free-to-play stuff. New AAA gamers, I'll just call them core gamers, that play, like everyone listening right now, you play core games. You might play the occasional free-to-play game, but if you go out there and you subscribe to a service or you play and buy games, you're a core gamer, right? There's people that their first game was Fortnite. By the way, that makes me want to throw up in my mouth. But some of these gamers' first video game is Fortnite, and then they moved on to Warzone and Apex, and then back to Fortnite. these free-to-play games where they have skins, and that's basically it, right? The core gaming demographic hasn't gotten any bigger for decades. And these journalists, they aren't asking the right questions, right? Everyone listening right now, me and Logan, we are literally a dying breed of gamers, right? So this 200 million, core group of gamers that isn't getting any bigger, fast forward 20 years from now, fast forward 30 years from now, you aren't going to have AAA games like you have today. Like, yeah, you might have a holodeck right by then, hopefully, but you're going to have free-to-play slop, right? You're going to have endless battle royales with microtransactions, battle passes. Core gamers aren't really going to be around anymore. Or at least they're going to be old and playing their older games, right? So, like, I don't know, like single-player Call of Duty campaigns, those will go the way of the dodo, right? People asking the wrong questions, and that's why I'm so annoyed today, because people blaming Game Pass isn't what's annoying me. It's annoying me that these journalists aren't reporting on the real issue. It's the black hole games, and it's dev time. Like, if you played a game today that you loved that came out this year, and it does well, you are not going to get a sequel till the 2030s. That is absolutely insane. Absolutely insane. I loved Indiana Jones and the Great Circle. 10 out of 10 experience for me. Realistically, when am I getting a sequel? 2028, if I'm lucky. Realistically, we're talking 2030. Hell, like, when are we going to get a Starfield 2? 2036? I'm not even joking. And that's why I'm so annoyed. I think that these journalists, because none of these journalists, not many of them anyway, they're not going out there and writing what I'm saying. And if any of them do, I'd like actual credit, because nobody's talking about this issue. Like, why not go out there and say, hey, you have millions of people getting into gaming with Fortnite, and they're not willing to pay to play other games. They don't even know how to play games that have stories. I saw this stream a couple of months ago of someone that had only ever played Fortnite. They were trying to play a game that had narrative cutscenes. They couldn't figure out what was going on. Right? The concept of them sitting through story or reading something or having to do something that isn't just walk around, kill other players, they couldn't grasp it. It was like an alien concept.
It's TikTok brain rot, man.
Yeah, it's TikTok brain rot. Like, it's crazy. And, I'm not, like, this could be an old man yells at cloud thing moment for me, but what I'm saying is making sense. These games we love now, these AAA games that are making less money, think about it, the game budgets of these games are going up to hundreds of millions of dollars, but you don't have more people coming into the AAA space playing these games. So who's expected to, flip the bill, right? Do we get charged more for video games, or do we actually, maybe try and encourage people to play different types of games, or realistically, the budgets have to go down for these games. The development time has to go down. And people will say, and I've seen a few people say this over the past few weeks, AI, Jamie. What about AI? I think AI is a great tool, but at the minute, the state it's at, with the vitriol between developers and AI, that's not really a conversation we can have right now. Because the tools clearly aren't there for the developers to use the way ideally they do it. A game coming out now and getting a sequel in 10 years, it's not sustainable. The Witcher 4 has to be an instant success out of the gate if its rumored price is true, which is $400 million. If that game doesn't come out and sell 12 million copies in its first month, the investors are going to look at that, call it a failure, do a Square Enix and think, right, we're not going to make any sequels to this or make expansions. It's crazy. And I feel like I'm taking crazy pills because not really many people are talking about this. Like, it's not Game Pass. And by the way, these podcasts, which I won't mention, that do nothing but complain about Game Pass because they're boring, right? They never talk about this stuff I'm talking about. The real issues. I'm not some Nostradamus where I can predict the future, but if you just look at the tea leaves, we can bloody see what's going on. There aren't any new core gamers coming into the market. Maybe if you have a kid and you've introduced them to different types of games, cool. But that's a dime a dozen. You don't have millions of players flocking to these games. You have these developers, like I use Square Enix as an example again, right? They can have a game sell 12 million copies, 7 million copies or whatever. They'll say it underperformed. And why? Because these companies expect way too much, and the player base isn't getting any bigger. You had EA come out a few days ago saying that their next Battlefield game, they expect, bear in mind, expect 100 million players. Never gonna happen. Never gonna happen. And bear in mind, that's rumored to have.
Especially after their last game.
Yeah, like it's just not gonna happen. So bear in mind that the pricing model and business model for their next Battlefield game is rumored to be you pay for the campaign and multiplayer, and you get the Battle Royale free, right? Much like Call of Duty. But you don't have 100 million people playing Warzone. And Warzone is arguably one of the biggest games in the world, right? I love Warzone at the minute. But it's these game budgets, man. And every time I mention this, some people say I'm wrong. It's all about Game Pass and stuff. Like, we're told all the time that these games are costing more and more to make. We're told that we should be charged $80 for video games, $90. You have this small group of people online that are willing to say, "Hey, I'd be willing to pay $100 for video games." It's unrealistic, right? Completely unrealistic, because these people that get 1 or 2 games a year, let's say they get 2 games a year, you up the price to that much, they're going to get 1 game a year. Or maybe even less. Maybe they'll get 1 game every 2 years, because that's how some of these people play games. It's going to push more people into free-to-play slop. And I will refer to it as free-to-play slop. It blows my mind. Like, so let's blame Game Pass all day rather than talk about the real issue. It's budgets. Like, look, I saw Perfect Dark mention it before in chat, right? Allegedly, what we saw last year was real gameplay, right? But that was a vertical slice of a game that was in development for 7 years, and that's all they had to show for it. Now, this isn't me, like brushing off the matter saying, "Oh, it's a bad game, they should have cancelled it anyway." No, I was looking forward to that game. People can look at my tweets. I've posted videos about it. I'm excited. I was excited for Perfect Dark. But if you have these games come out that in the AAA space are extremely risk averse, and they take 7 years to make, that's not going to succeed in any capacity, right? So, like, outside of everyone listening right now and people later, core gamers on the Xbox side specifically, who is really going to buy Perfect Dark? I think the era of getting legacy reboots of old IP, I think that time's done. I don't think you're going to be, unless it's maybe a Banjo, which, especially on Nintendo, you would literally have millions of people buying that. I don't think you have that for Perfect Dark. I don't think you have that for, let's say, a Jet Set Gemini. That's what it was called, right, Logan? Jet Set Gemini?
Yep, the sci-fi rare one. Yep.
And like just stuff like that. Like the AAA space is risk averse, so we're going to continue to get the same game over and over again, which is something I complain about. But if games are costing more, people are willing to spend less money on risk, meaning we're going to see less games made with risk. And it's this endless cycle where we're going to get the same thing and over and over and over again. And while we're getting the same thing over and over again, we're going to be charged more. All while you have millions of people getting into gaming, playing free-to-play slop. So you fast forward 40 years from now. Yeah, Jet Force Gemini. Thank you. I kept saying Jet Set Gemini. But Jet Force Gemini is a good example. I would have loved to have seen a modern third-person shooter set in that universe. Make it new. Basically, just copy Mass Effect, please. But millions of people aren't coming into the game in the way the gaming industry and these higher-ups actually believe. Because when the next Mass Effect comes out, and of course I'll use Mass Effect as another example, I bet there's going to be people at EA that will say this game needs to sell 12 million copies. I guarantee you that's going to happen, right? And it's going to be reported as a loss in the first month when it doesn't hit that. And they'll probably cancel the franchise again, right? I'm not even annoyed about the whole Game Pass thing. It's the fact that these journalists aren't doing the job, right? There's huge issues with the game industry. Nobody's talking about it, right? So, like I was going to say before, let's say 50 years from now, right? You aren't going to have video games with stories anymore. Nah. Unless you have a collection of old games that's going to be aimed at older people, people in retirement homes, right? You aren't going to have games like that anymore. If anything, the only one you would have is a GTA 7 at that point, right? I think
they'd finally get the 7 in 2050.
that's if we don't have remasters of 6 by then. But like, it's scary that there's actually some truth to what I'm saying. Like, I think 50 years from now, single player games with stories, are kind of done. You're gonna have your free to play Fortnite with its season 506, chapter 7, and you're gonna have Call of Duty Warzone 8. PUBG will finally get its Unreal Engine 5 remake, and that's it. That's it. You'll have indie developers making some money off the last bastions of core gaming, but that's it. I think it's done. And I keep referring to it as AAA slop because, as someone that enjoys Warzone, you can just feel this stuff itching away at your skin. Battle passes are designed to actually make you try and play a lot. And, even though I have finished my very first battle pass, guess what? I didn't pay a penny for it. Microsoft Rewards did, right? I'm never paying for a battle pass. No, it's slop. It's not content, right? We used to buy games, have a multiplayer mode, and do you know what you did in that mode? You would unlock guns, skins, characters. You played a fighting game, you unlock characters by playing it. These black hole games, they called that for a reason. It's all about sinking money into. That's why when Fortnite came out, Fortnite Battle Royale came out in 2017, the entire industry basically crapped themselves because we can make billions, we can print money by basically, making a minimal viable product over and over again and just keep pumping out content. Remember when Epic used to make video games? We don't have that anymore. We have Epic making, Ariana Grande music experiences in bloody Fortnite, right? The AAA industry is screwed. 50 years from now, single player games are done. You have indie games and that's it, and maybe collections. But let's blame Game Pass. Let's blame Game Pass. Logan, I've been talking for 20 minutes straight, talking about the doom and gloom of the industry going forward, but what's your take? Because, my God, it's been a bloodbath of a week, but that's just my thoughts on the industry. Anyway.
Yeah, I think, frankly, just to be completely blunt, the industry needs a reset and wake up call, and soon. How that would happen, I don't know. But something pretty drastic has to change because, like the famous quote, like, insanity is basically keep doing the same thing over and over and over again, expect something different to happen or it to change. If you keep repeating the same mistakes from your past, history tells us you're doomed to repeat your mistakes, and like it's just mind-boggling the idea and solutions to these things are, oh, our budgets are skyrocketing out of control. We're going to just charge you more, and then we're going to cut manpower to make it to where there's even less people available to work on these things that we're now budgeting out of control, and we're charging ridiculous prices for. And then, oh, we have these black hole games that are AAA slop, and then we add content to it regularly just to keep you hooked on it. But then we might, at a minute's notice, decide to can it, and then you can't play it again just for reasons because whatever. It's just the whole industry's just it's cooked at this point. Like I'm an eternal optimist. I'm a positive guy. I just don't like the direction I've been seeing some things go. Not all is bad. We talk about the multi-platform approach, and it seems like most of the companies are now in line with that or getting into line. That's great. Let everybody play everything. Let everybody get the biggest communities possible for their games. Let people it become about, hey, what franchise do you like, or what
game narrative do you like, or this experience, this or that, and people talk about that, and expand their communities and interests and passions, and make more friends and stuff like that, rather than it be about arbitrary just nonsense. Like, bring that forward. And that, I know AI is the quote boogeyman, and I know the devs have a real deep set hatred of it. But I mean, the reality of the situation is AI is here. Whether we like it, whether people like it or not, AI is going to be heavily entrenched in just about every entertainment and technological industry going forward in some capacity. It's getting smarter. They're using it more and more. Yes, it sucks that it's costing people their jobs. 100%. I'd rather a person be able to do what they need to do than, just, grok GDP or whatever, just going and then making something happen. Like, obviously, we would rather the people do it. But at the same time, with all these costs skyrocketing and stuff, maybe one way to combat that is if you train these softwares to work with your developers and to make content on a faster cadence, on a better, more complicated topics or stories or gameplay initiatives. Like, find a way to work with it and to utilize it as a tool. Power is not inherently good or evil. It's how you use it that makes it that way. Like, I know a lot of people are scared by AI, and there are definitely some scary things about it. Like, if you don't have guardrails, there is the, quote, Skynet future potential. Like, you obviously don't want that to happen. So, you don't have to be Sarah Connor, like, terrified of it 100%, but you also need to be vigilant and aware and have guardrails and control it appropriately, and don't mess around with stuff in ways that could cause problems. And it's just, I don't know, it's not a simple black or white topic or issue. And I think it's bad when people try to um completely villainize it or completely say there's no issues, because neither one is true. There are issues, and it isn't completely evil. There it's complicated. And so I think the industry just needs a reset. They need to, I like you, we've talked about a million times on the show. If we just had 360 graphics, or maybe Xbox One graphics, or if better yet, we just peaked at this graphics. This gen is the peak of graphics going forward, and that's just it. And then we focus on innovation and gameplay stuff and experiences and stories and doing innovation in ways that we couldn't before. I'd be cool with that. Like, at the end of the day, we can't just have the cake and eat it too all the time in every single aspect, or you're never bloody gonna get that sequel you want. Like, you had that post that went absolutely like volcanic and thermonuclear, where you had all this,
Oh yeah.
the Mass Effects, the Bioshocks, like, and you didn't even include Star Wars
No,
games. Like, how many Star Wars games we had on 360 and OG
a lot.
compared to since EA took over, and we had like a handful, maybe, and it just, and like all these other types things. Now you're lucky if you get two games within a franchise in one generation. You know how to stifle and stagnate a franchise from ever being born or thriving? By doing that crap. You gotta have it come out in a regular, reasonable cadence. Otherwise, how do you grow it? Like, imagine, like, used to be Star Wars movies back in the day, came out, and then you'd have 3 years, 2 to 3 years later, you've got the sequel. 2 to 3 years later, you got the sequel. Okay, your trilogy right there. Or in games like Knights of the Old Republic, then a year or two later, Knights of the Old Republic 2. Or Force Unleashed, and then Force Unleashed 2. Or, Mass Effect 1, and then 2, then 3. Gears 1, Gears 2, Gears 3, Gears Judgment. Like, it just, it had a natural order and flow. I know it sounds like boomer, old man, yells at cloud, rages against a dying world energy sometimes. But there's just got to be a change at some point, or it's just going to be irreparably broken.
Yeah. Before I get into the whole Twitter post thing, because that thing went viral. I was talking about the state of the future, like when 50 years from now we're not going to have single player games. I have to read this reply because this is amazing. Sotonist in chat wrote, Death Stranding will be real life by then. I mean,
That's true.
at this rate, that wouldn't surprise me. But you know what? This show typically goes 2 hours. I think we're going to go a bit over today because it's important. The whole like game budget thing, I keep bringing it up because like after last week's show, I just wrote out a tweet. Didn't really think much about it, and I just wrote a list of the franchises, like you said, that we had multiple sequels of that generation during the Sense generation, and like this tweet, it was number one trending in the UK, right? My most liked post ever on Twitter. I think it's like 33,000 likes. Incredible, right? 1.3 million views. By the way, if those people want to, subscribe to the YouTube channel, that would really be nice. But the interesting thing about that post isn't the likes or the retweets. It was the replies. I opened people's minds up to the slop we get now, because in 6 years we had 3 Mass Effect games with 12 expansions. Really think about it. 3 Mass Effect games, 12 expansions, a multiplayer mode, which I believe had 20 maps. I think it's 20 maps. It had a bunch of support. We had 3 Dead Space games, 3 Bioshock games, 8 Rockstar games, 2 of which were GTAs. We had 2 Fallouts, 2 Elder Scrolls games, technically 3 Dragon Age games, right? We had the Orange Box, which is a must-buy collection. We had 3 Arkham games. I could literally go on. Peak Battlefield, and the best Call of Duty didn't have microtransactions or battle passes. And I just checked right now. Do you know Mass Effect 3, which gets a lot of hate because of its ending, but Mass Effect 3 is actually the longest game of the trilogy. That game, bear in mind, you have hundreds of thousands of lines of dialogue in that game. That game cost $40 million. You have hundreds of voice actors.
Worth every penny.
Yeah, worth every penny. Excellent gameplay. The graphics still look pretty good, especially in Legendary Edition. And, whenever I think about Mass Effect 4, I always think, like, what's this game going to play like? What's the story going to be like? I never think, you know what, I need this to be a photorealistic game. I don't care. If it comes out and it looks exactly like 3, I don't think I'd bat an eye. I don't really care. I play 360 games all the time. I like that level of visual fidelity. I think is perfectly fine. Like, is it cool to play a Hellblade and have this like super realistic graphics? Of course, it's super cool. But I think people are expecting way too much. And I saw this post the other day, and you might have saw it as well, Logan, that this person posted on Twitter saying, and it was a clip from Death Stranding 2, and it was a cutscene. And this person posted, if we don't see this level of visual fidelity with NPCs in Fallout 4, we are screwed. And that post made me realize the game industry, on our part, is doomed. Because people have super.
I'm like, buddy, you don't know Bethesda, man.
Yeah, like that, like Death Stranding. For people that don't know, it's a game. You don't have NPCs in that game, right? You go to one location to another. Either a cutscene plays or you talk to a hologram. The game doesn't really have traditional NPCs, so to expect that level of visual fidelity in a Fallout game is possibly one of the most unrealistic things I've ever seen online. And I'm on Twitter all the time. So, like, people expecting that blows my mind, right? And people at the minute, they want super realistic graphics. They want ray tracing. They want 60 frames. They want 120 frames. And, like, yes, the developers are at fault for, like, spending this much on games. But, oh my god, we expect way too much. And, like, I get going back to 360 levels of visual fidelity, like on the high end, such as Mass Effect and Halo 4, Grand Theft Auto 5, right? That's never going to happen, unfortunately, because I think to market games, graphics are the pretty thing which you need up top. Realistically, we are kind of screwed. Like we aren't going to have the level of visual fidelity go down because people will complain. The performance of these games is obviously going to be, relatively good. So, like, what's the answer? AI is kind of an answer, but I think people going to blame Game Pass, it's extremely disingenuous because do you know what gets more likes and more eyes on social media and YouTube videos? It's not the game industry needs to change. It's let's blame Xbox. It's the death of Xbox. It's the death of Game Pass, right? People would rather choose the clicks rather than being honest, and that really makes my pee boil. Try not to swear today. But yeah, we need to talk about that, and we'll probably talk about it again next week because it's such a long topic. But the journalists out there, they aren't doing their job. At least a lot of them aren't, and people not talking about the issues. It's really annoying. Like, if people can take my long rant where I'm talking about the future of gaming and how we're not going to have single-player games because, there's no new players coming into the mix that play those types of games. Like, I have a point, we'll end it off with the Fallout stuff, away from the morbid reality of the future, which is going to be terrible. Fallout is one of my favorite franchises of all time. Fortunately for us, there was a Fallout leak was it last year's FTC documents, where other than Oblivion Remastered, I'm calling it Remake, but other than Oblivion Remastered or Remake, Fallout 3 was listed on that as well. And everything on that list so far has turned out to be true. So it came out today that there's multiple Fallout projects in the works outside of the TV show. And for people that don't know, Season 2 comes out, I believe, this December. It looks like maybe Microsoft is going full steam ahead when it comes to Fallout, because the problem with Bethesda at the minute is they take such a long time to make games. And if they only have one team making that one game, you're going to have the Elder Scrolls 6 come out in 2026 if you're lucky, realistically 2027, and then they're going to have to spend at least 5 years making Fallout 4. I've just realised I wrote Fallout 4 instead of 5. Okay.
They're bringing it back, a remaster.
I've been looking at my title for the past hour thinking something doesn't look right. It's because I wrote Fallout 4 instead of 5. I'll correct that. But people know what I'm talking about. Fallout 5. Right, Fallout 5 is 2032, something like that, if we're lucky. I think Microsoft's best way forward, and it looks like they might be doing this, is to have a separate studio in Bethesda make both games simultaneously. And, in between each game, you'll have a remaster. So let's say after Elder Scrolls 6 comes out, people are loving it, maybe a year or two passes, and you get a remake of Morrowind. Right? I think that is a good way to do, like, that franchise justice, even for a lot of franchises, right? We shouldn't be having 10 years in between games. Like, when did Skyrim come out? 2011. Like,
yes.
That was the last time we had a new Elder Scrolls game. Yeah, I can't wait for Fallout 4. I'm not going to live that one down. But like, it's going to be so much time in between, like, these follow-ups. Like, realistically, I'm being serious. I think Starfield 2 is 2035, 2036. So it does look like something's happening. Microsoft may be moving the needle when it comes to Fallout, because even Todd Howard has said they can't go that many years in between Fallouts, especially when the TV show made the fourth game. Yes, that's right, Fallout 4 this time. Trending number one across Europe. It then a 9-year-old game. So thankfully, it looks like, Microsoft is putting the pedal to the metal when it comes to Fallout. Because look, I love Elder Scrolls. I do lean towards Fallout more. Maybe because I'm a sci-fi nut, but still, it looks like Microsoft's shifting in the direction I've been wanting for this. Logan, what's your take? Because we've both been saying they need to make both simultaneously, and it kind of looks like they might be doing that.
Yeah, it's a godsend at this point. It, like you said, it makes perfect sense, and honestly, they should have done it years ago. Of make an additional studio within the Bethesda games family for Fallout specifically, because you know sometimes you worry about spreading talent too thin or having too many cooks in the kitchen or whatever, but when you have franchises that are as large and complicated and require so much attention and bandwidth as an Elder Scrolls or a Fallout, it is really hard to have just one group of people work on one and then go, okay, now we got to shift this giant dreadnought of a ship and turn it towards the other franchise. Because if you do that, it's going to take decades, ages to get to the next one. Like, you need a regular cadence for this. And finally, they seem to realize that. So hopefully, they do make it an expansion studio just for Fallout, or at least at the very minimum, bring in an additional team to work with Bethesda on Fallout to have it to where you can do both at the same time. Like bring in more people to work on it. And it sounds like they're doing something that people had wanted for ages, that Obsidian, who seemed to be one of the Xbox studios, and frankly, not just Xbox studios, but studios and all of gaming that has their head on 100% straight and can crank out great games in a short cadence just like 7th gen. Like they are absolutely cooking with grease this year. Like you've got Avowed, you've got Grounded 2, you've got Outer Worlds 2, and just all within a short amount of time of each other. Are you kidding me? Like that's incredible in today's industry. And they do great job, and they're just fantastic at what they do. So it sounds like they are getting another crack at Fallout. Like if rumors are believed, whether it's a Vegas 2 or a set somewhere else Fallout or whatever it is, it sounds like they will get their hands on another Fallout experience. And along with the Fallout 5 that everybody knows is coming eventually, and the remaster remake of Fallout 3. So, three projects for Fallout seems to be the current tea leaves or word on the street, and I can't wait. I love the idea of all of them. Heck, whenever In Exile is done with
Oh yeah,
Clockwork, let them take another crack at Fallout. Like they have the bloody creator of Fallout, one of
yeah.
them on their studio head, and other veterans. They could make a Fallout 1 and 2 styled Fallout game as like an additional experience or tactics, to where because they can take the expertise they've learned from with the Wasteland series and do a Fallout in that way, so that you have a different type of Fallout where you have the traditional RPG and then you have that classical RPG. So I don't know. It's like the future is bright for Fallout, and I'm excited.
Yeah, I mean, the last time, like, and I say this is something that got into Fallout 4 last year because I took my sweet time. Um, but like, I'm already ready for like more Fallout. Like I absolutely adore Fallout, and the success of that TV show and like what it did with Halo, not Halo 4. My God, I'm all over today. Fallout 4. Um, it looks like just people want more. Hell, I, I might get hate for this, but like I would be okay with like spin-offs in those universes. Like I would love a linear first-person shooter set in the Fallout universe, but where you play as the Brotherhood of Steel, just going on missions, that type of thing. Like endless possibilities. Like if you remove the budget, like restraints and all that stuff, like we should be getting like sequels, spin-offs, alternate games in these universes because Fallout is such a big franchise. We shouldn't be waiting 10 years between games. We just shouldn't. And at that point, whenever 5 comes out, if nothing's changed by then, like we're looking at what 16, 17 years in between sequels. Now when it comes to the engine thing, I saw. I honestly think, and 100% believe this, that they will stick with the creation engine because that's what they're using with Elder Scrolls 6. But I think anything beyond that, it's all up in the air. I think it really comes down to what the developers are comfortable using, because if they can use Unreal Engine 5, I think they will. The remake of Oblivion is Unreal Engine, and outside of a few minor issues which can be fixed, um, I'd say go with Unreal Engine. Oblivion looks absolutely masterful. Even though I have put it on the back burner for a bit because of my backlog is ridiculous, but the game looks beautiful. The only issue I've had with that game is literally there's a lighting bug that if you play it at night and walk around the woods, there's these coloured orbs all over the ground. That apparently that's a known Unreal Engine 5 problem, which they can fix. But honestly, I haven't really had any problems with the creation engine. I think Starfield looks perfectly fine. Yes, you do have the occasional NPC that looks a bit off, but like the close up characters that you do like conversations with for main quests, they look perfectly fine to me. I thought the tool for making your created character was good, and that level of visual fidelity, I thought it looked great. The spaceships look great. The suits look great. The individual items on tables and stuff. Lots of detail there. I've never gone into a Bethesda RPG thinking, you know what, I'm going to get a super realistic experience. I don't really want that. I don't really care. But yeah, that's Fallout. Now, and I've been saying this for the past year, and I'm hoping I'm right. I've been saying that I do think they will drop the remake of Fallout 3 alongside the TV show, or at least very shortly afterwards, like a month max, just to hype it up. I do think we will see, Fallout 3 remake announced this year. It might be a Jeff Keighley showcase thing. But yeah, that's Fallout. We've gone over pretty much most of the topics today. We've gone, 2 hours, 12 minutes. I think we're going to call it a day. We've still got stuff to go over. We'll save it for next week's show. Unless anything else you want to say, Logan, before we close out the show?
No, just excited to hop into the new games coming soon. And I guess my one thing I would add is if any of the Xbox people are listening, it would be awesome if y'all could fast track that update to allow us to sort our games by play anywhere or not. Because I know it sounds like a one percenter problem, but like I literally went and manually did it with all my games to put them in a group. But going forward, it would be so much easier and so much better if that was out and quickly done to where we can just check our games and see what's play anywhere or not for the Xbox, portable devices that are going to be made by Asus that are coming later this year. Like, I know times have not been exactly the greatest, and positivity is hard to find at the moment in certain places for Xbox stuff. But I am excited for that handheld later this year, and yeah, drop the price at some point. Unless you're worried about sticker shock reigniting flames and making people even more pissed off. But just
That would be really helpful. That's all I have to say.
Yeah, honestly, I thought you were going to bring up the BC batch.
Oh, well, that too, Jason, if you're there.
Yeah, we desperately needed that. Like, for people that follow social media, we've been talking about this bloody Activision backwards compatible batch for like 2 years now. Honestly, as long as I don't have to rip open these Transformers Cybertron cases and just keep them sealed forever, I'll be happy. But yeah, anyway, our social links in the description down below. The link to my last video, the 10 biggest new games coming out in July. That video actually has 14 video games in it, and if I remember correctly, 13 of those games are still yet to release this month. It's a great month for video games, lots of variety, and the link to that is in the description down below. Hope people enjoy it. Took a while putting it together. We'll be back for a new episode of All Things Xbox podcast next Tuesday, same time as usual, and we'll probably go over the whole Game Pass and Chris Dring thing again, and I will mention him by name because that was a stupid, messy situation, and frankly, he kind of earned it, you know. But people, leave him alone on social media. It's just critiquing someone's thoughts on the gaming industry. That's all it boils down to. But yeah, everyone in chat has been amazing once again. We'll see you next week, and everyone, be safe out there and try and stay cool because, oh my god, it's hot. Anyway, we're out, everybody.